Can't even keep a man, my sister sneered at Thanksgiving. Tuesday, she walked into a bridal boutique. I owned it. Need a dress for a wedding that's actually happening? I asked. She smirked across the dinner table, wine glass in hand, cranberry sauce untouched on her plate, and her voice cutting through the small talk like a knife. Still single, Marla? She asked, not out of curiosity, out of performance. Her lips curled up as if the words themselves tasted good. I didn't answer right away. I never did. That was the way it worked in our family. Let Veronica be the star, the headline, the firecracker at the center of the room. I was the older sister, the one who stayed in Massachusetts while she built a life of luxury and spectacle in Manhattan. I had a boutique. She had a penthouse. I had fittings with nervous brides. She had galas and rooftop dinners and Instagram posts that looked like fashion editorials. Can't even keep a man, huh? She added, loud enough that our cousin's kids stopped arguing about pie. My father cleared his throat. My mother glanced at her wine glass, suddenly needing another. Nobody ever called Veronica out on her barbs, especially not when they were neatly packaged with a smile and a laugh. I finally looked at her. I didn't smile. I'd rather be single than settling. She blinked once. Just once. And then tilted her glass to her lips again, her victory claimed. Or so she thought. It wasn't until the following Tuesday that I saw her again. My boutique, I'll be there, sits quietly on Walden Street, nestled between a French cafe and an old bookstore that still smells like paper and dust and teenage dreams. I opened it 8 years ago, after walking away from a life I thought I wanted, marriage, the white picket fence, the man who promised forever and then moved out 2 years into it. So I built something with my hands. Something that wasn't dependent on someone else choosing me. It was a quiet morning. I was restocking some of the lace mermaid gowns near the back when I heard the bell above the door. I called out a polite, "Be right with you," and turned around. She was standing there. Veronica. No heels. No lipstick. No coat even, just a long cardigan wrapped tight around her, arms crossed like armor. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then I said it, almost too quickly to think it through. Need a dress for a wedding that's actually happening? Her mouth twitched. A flash of pain crossed her face, but she didn't flinch. It's not my wedding, she said. Her voice was soft. Strained. She stepped inside fully, letting the door swing shut behind her. I set the dress I was holding on the rack beside me and walked toward her. Her eyes looked puffy, like she hadn't slept. And there was something missing, no engagement ring. Just a faint tan line where it had sat like a trophy. Jonah cheated, she said flatly. No dramatic pause. No theatrics. His assistant. She's 24. Posts yoga videos and inspirational quotes about loving yourself first. I wanted to ask if she was serious. I wanted to ask how long she'd known. I wanted to say I told you so, because I never trusted Jonah from day one. But I said nothing. I just nodded toward the couches near the changing rooms. She followed. We sat there for a long time. A strange silence hung between us. We weren't used to silence. Veronica was noisy. She filled every room she walked into. But today, she was quiet. Finally, she said, I need a dress. I'm still going to Rachel's wedding. Of course. I don't want to look like I fell apart. You don't. She let out something between a laugh and a sigh. Yes, I do. Over the next few days, she came back. Not just to try on dresses, but to be somewhere that didn't require her to fake joy or answer questions she didn't want to. She didn't post any stories or tag me in her location. She just showed up, sometimes with coffee, sometimes without makeup, and always with that distant look in her eyes that told me she was trying to make sense of the new version of her life. One day, while I was pinning the waistline of a chiffon dress she'd picked for Rachel's wedding, she said without looking at me, he used to tell me what to wear. Said yellow washed me out. Said I shouldn't wear heels because it made me look taller than him. I paused. Not out of shock, but because hearing it out loud hit differently. And when I got promoted, she continued, voice low, he said we'd celebrate. Then he sulked for a week. I didn't ask why she stayed. I didn't need to. There's a certain script women like us are handed: be grateful, be pretty, don't ask too much, don't outshine. And if you walk away, you're bitter. If you stay, you're blind. Veronica wore the navy gown with the lace shoulders to Rachel's wedding. I saw the photos later. She looked like herself, but softer. Less curated. More real. Her smile didn't look pasted on. It looked earned. She came back a few days later, bringing pastries from the cafe next door and a scarf I'd once mentioned liking in passing. She sat behind the counter with me while I sorted new shipments. Have you ever thought about leaving here? She asked. Sometimes, I admitted. But I think I've made peace with the fact that this is home for me. Not a fallback. A choice. She nodded. I think I want to try staying. Here? She smiled. I need somewhere to rebuild. You're the only one who didn't say I told you so. I thought about it. But I didn't say it. We both laughed. And for the first time in years, it wasn't tinged with competitiveness or resentment. It was real. Winter dug its heels in deep that year. Concord was cloaked in powdery snow by mid-December, and the sidewalks turned into a shifting maze of slush and salt. But inside I'll be there, it was warm, quietly, purposefully warm. Velvet winter gowns hung on copper racks, soft music hummed in the background, and the scent of lavender sachets nestled in the hem of every dress filled the air. It was a kind of peace I'd cultivated carefully over the years. And now, oddly enough, Veronica had become part of it. She wasn't crashing on my couch or staying out of convenience. She'd rented a small apartment above a closed-down print shop on the edge of town. She painted the walls herself. She bought a second-hand desk and started writing again, columns, essays, sometimes short pieces of fiction. Nothing like the glossy marketing drivel she used to ghostwrite in New York. She seemed quieter. But not broken. More like someone piecing herself back together with new glue. At first, I didn't quite know what to make of her showing up regularly. She started small, offering to help tag inventory, steam dresses, and answer the phone. She even wrangled a last-minute seamstress appointment when my usual tailor came down with the flu. She wasn't trying to take over. She wasn't trying to turn my boutique into a performance stage. She just wanted something steady to hold on to. One afternoon, while we were sitting on the floor reorganizing a bin of mismatched pearl buttons, she said, almost as if reading her own thoughts out loud, "Do you ever feel like you were someone else in a past life?" I looked at her, curious. I mean, she continued, I look at photos of myself from last year and I don't know that person. I don't even like her. She was sharp. Plastic. Everything about her had to be rehearsed. I didn't rush to agree, but I didn't deny it either. She glanced over at me. You always knew who you were. I think I hated that about you. That caught me off guard. I tilted my head, genuinely puzzled. What do you mean? I mean, she said with a wry smile, while I was busy trying to look perfect, you were actually building a life. You didn't need a man, or a penthouse, or some job title that sounded impressive on paper. You just chose yourself. And I was jealous of that. I leaned back against the base of the fitting room wall. I didn't feel brave when I did it. I felt like I was failing. I remember crying in my car outside this place the night before I opened it. I thought no one would come. That I'd wasted everything. But you stayed. I stayed. We sat in that quiet hum of understanding. Two women in their 40s, sisters who had spent most of their adult lives pretending not to need each other, finally sitting still in their truth. She didn't need rescuing. She just needed space. And maybe, just maybe, a little bit of forgiveness, most of all from herself. The boutique became our middle ground. Not a battleground. Not a stage. Just a place where fabric and hope were stitched together daily by tired hands and open hearts. In January, she started helping with consultations. The first bride she helped was a jittery 22-year-old named Hannah, who had changed her mind 3 times about her color palette and was convinced none of the dresses were the one. I had stepped out back to take a call, and when I returned, I saw Veronica standing next to Hannah at the mirror, one hand gently adjusting the train, the other resting lightly on her shoulder. "You don't have to look like a magazine," she told her softly. "You just have to feel like yourself." Hannah's eyes welled up. And I watched Veronica, for the first time in a long time, look completely grounded in the moment. It wasn't about being seen. It was about making someone else feel seen. After the appointment, she didn't brag or gloat. She just smiled a little to herself and went back to logging receipts in the front office. A week later, I found a sticky note on my desk. It read, "This isn't a pit stop anymore. I think I'm finally here." She didn't need to explain what she meant. Veronica's return to Concord didn't go unnoticed for long. Word travels fast in towns like ours, not in a malicious way, but in that old New England rhythm of familiarity and small talk. The ladies at the post office, the baristas at the cafe, even Mrs. Tolland who ran the consignment shop 3 doors down, they all gave me that same raised eyebrow, knowing look when they asked, "Your sister's back in town for good?" I said yes. Keep it simple. Didn't explain that she was licking her wounds and quietly rebuilding the foundation of a life she'd been faking for years. That part wasn't for the public. Eventually, our parents caught on. Not because Veronica announced anything, but because my mother stopped by the boutique one Saturday unannounced and found Veronica standing behind the counter, helping a bride's mother figure out a neckline. It was the first time they'd seen each other since Thanksgiving. My mother didn't say much at first. Just blinked, adjusted her scarf, and smiled that tight-lipped, old-school smile she uses when something unsettles her. Veronica, to her credit, didn't shrink. "Hi, Mom," she said, and it was more honest than any greeting they'd exchanged in years. My mother stepped forward and kissed her cheek like everything was normal. Then she turned to me and said, "You're letting her work here now?" Veronica turned back to the register. I nodded. "She's helping out, yeah." "She's back for how long?" "I'm not sure," I said. "She's figuring things out." That was the part my mother couldn't stand, the figuring it out part. She was the kind of woman who believed in straight lines, not detours. You got married, had children, bought property, hosted dinner parties. You didn't fall apart. And if you did, you certainly didn't do it so visibly. She stayed for 10 more minutes, browsing racks she had no interest in, asking about new shipments and whether business was good after the holidays. Then she left, with a vague promise to stop in again soon. After she was gone, Veronica let out a breath she'd been holding. "She looked at me like I was in a house with no roof," she muttered. "She looked at you like a woman she doesn't understand," I corrected. "There's a difference." The next dinner at our parents' house was different. Smaller. Tighter. No cousins or extended family, just the 4 of us. It had been years since it was that way. And in many ways, it was harder. The silences were longer, and there was less noise to cover the tension. Dad made a pot roast. He always made pot roast when things were fragile. I think he believed it was neutral ground, like food could soak up whatever resentment sat between us. Veronica helped set the table without being asked. That surprised me more than anything else. Halfway through dinner, our mother put her fork down and said, without looking up, "You haven't said much about Jonah." Veronica didn't pause. "There's not much to say. He was such a promising man," she said carefully. "It's a shame things didn't work out." I could see the words building behind Veronica's eyes like pressure behind a dam. But instead of snapping, she just said, "He wasn't who I thought he was. That's on me." And then she turned the conversation to my father's new obsession with crossword puzzles. Just like that. Later, as we walked to our cars under a sky thick with stars and frost, I asked her if she was okay. She shrugged. I spent 10 years trying to impress people who never really saw me. I don't have the energy for it anymore. You handled that dinner better than I thought you would. I spent a lot of time building a life for other people's approval, she said. Now I'm just trying to build one I can live with. By February, Veronica had slipped fully into life in Concord. She picked up a part-time gig teaching a night course in creative writing at the Adult Learning Center. Her students loved her. A few of them came into the shop one afternoon to thank her personally, and I saw a different kind of pride on her face. Not performative, not Instagram ready, just real, quiet fulfillment. She was writing more, too. She started a blog under a pseudonym and wrote openly about betrayal, starting over, sisterhood, and the kind of personal truth that's both cathartic and cruel to put down. She let me read a few pieces. One was titled, "The Dress You Didn't Wear." It made me cry in the back office during lunch. Somehow, we had gone from rivals to co-creators of a kind of emotional sanctuary, for ourselves, and, unexpectedly, for others too. A local bridal magazine reached out about doing a feature on I'll Be There. I considered saying no, but Veronica convinced me otherwise. "You've worked your ass off for this place," she said, sitting across from me with 2 mugs of black coffee. "People should know about it. They don't need to know about me. They need to know about what happens when you choose your own life. That's the story." So we said yes. The photo shoot was simple. Natural. They wanted us both in the final spread. Sisters, side by side in the boutique we now ran together, not officially, not yet, but in spirit. When the issue came out in March, I braced for comments. And there were plenty. Some old classmates reached out, a few distant relatives texted things like, "So proud of you girls," as if they hadn't watched us rip each other apart year after year. But most of the messages were quiet, kind, even vulnerable. A woman from Newton wrote, "I just left a man who made me feel small. Your story helped me feel brave for 5 minutes. That's enough to start." Another said, "My sister and I haven't spoken in 8 years. I sent her your article. She called me. Thank you." We sat on the boutique's velvet couch one evening, reading them all. Veronica didn't say much. She just leaned her head on my shoulder and exhaled. For once, we didn't need words. Spring came slowly to Concord that year. The kind of slow where you almost don't notice the snow melting until the first crocus pokes through the sidewalk cracks. Life was starting to feel like it had motion again. Brides were booking out into the fall. Veronica was hosting a weekend writing circle that was slowly turning into its own little community. And then, of course, the past decided to knock. I was in the back of the shop, updating our inventory spreadsheet, when I heard the chime of the front door. The kind of chime that sounds no different from any other day, except something about the silence that followed made my hands pause on the keyboard. Then I heard her voice. Faint, but unmistakably her. "Wow. Still smells like lavender and fabric starch in here. Veronica." I stood, walked toward the front, and saw her standing in the corner by the full-length mirror. Not Veronica. Her. Tessa. Jonah's assistant. Or, more accurately now, his ex-assistant turned fiancé. The one who posted yoga selfies with cryptic hashtags like #SoftLoveAQueen and #HisPiece and who, for a time, wore the ring Jonah once gave Veronica. She was taller than I remembered, with a face that had a little too much filler for someone barely in her mid-20s. She was flipping through a rack of dresses like she owned the place. And beside her, flipping through his phone, half present and fully bored, stood Jonah. He looked older. Not bad, just less shiny. That Wall Street boy glow had worn off, replaced with a sallow look that screamed burnout and bad sleep. I stepped into the room just as Veronica came out from the fitting room hallway, holding a veil sample in one hand and a bridal catalog in the other. She froze. Jonah looked up, did a double take, and stuttered, "Ver?" She didn't blink. Didn't stumble. Just walked forward and placed the catalog down on the counter. Her expression was unreadable, but her voice was steel. I see you're shopping locally, she said. Tessa beamed. We heard this place is super cute. I follow your store on Instagram. Didn't realize you two were, like, related. That's kind of wild. Veronica's eyes didn't leave Jonah. You're getting married. He nodded slowly, gauging her reaction like she was a snake in the grass. Next month, Tessa chirped. We're doing a fast-track destination ceremony. Tulum. You know, something intimate. Veronica glanced at me. I didn't need a cue. I stepped forward and smiled the kind of smile I reserved for difficult clients. Destination weddings can be tricky, I said, voice smooth. We have a line of lightweight dresses in the back. Very popular with brides who can't wait. Tessa clapped her hands. Ooh, yes. Do you think we could see them? I turned to Veronica. You want to handle the fitting? For the briefest second, something danced behind her eyes. Not rage. No regret. Something sharper. More composed. Sure, she said. Let's get you into something unforgettable. Over the next hour, we let them try on dresses. We pulled out our most expensive silks, the most delicate beaded bodices, the ones that took hours to refit and never sold quickly. Tessa wanted everything. Jonah checked his watch every 10 minutes. She kept using phrases like boho elegance and something daring but timeless. Veronica kept nodding, complimenting her choices in that perfectly clipped tone that sounded just sincere enough. And then, when Tessa had finally picked a dress, an off-white lace number with a plunging neckline and way too much bustle for a beach wedding, she turned to Veronica with that same breathy charm and asked, Do you guys offer, like, a friends and family discount? Veronica smiled. Tilted her head. Oh, she said sweetly, you'll be paying full price. In advance. Non-refundable. Special order. Jonah frowned. That's a little steep, isn't it? I walked over and printed the invoice. Our boutique policy, I said. All custom orders are final. No exceptions. Especially for expedited orders like yours. Tessa looked between us, clearly sensing something unspoken. Okay, sure. Jonah? He hesitated, then sighed and pulled out a black Amex. They paid. And then they left, arms full of overpriced silk and a receipt for a wedding dress that was going to wrinkle like tissue paper in the Tulum heat. Veronica stood by the door for a long time after they were gone. Think it'll last? I asked casually. She looked down at the counter, then shrugged. She'll learn eventually. Or maybe she won't. Either way, not my mess. I poured us each a glass of wine from the bottle we kept in the back cabinet for stressful fittings. To new beginnings, I said. Veronica clinked her glass against mine. And very expensive reminders. Word got out within weeks. Tessa had posted a dress photo on her wedding blog, gushing about her incredible local shopping experience. Naturally, the comments section lit up when someone from town recognized me and Veronica in the background of the shot. And then came the kicker. 2 weeks before the wedding, Jonah tried to cancel the dress order. Something about the venue falling through. We politely referred him back to the no refunds clause on his signed invoice. He didn't argue. He knew better. Life continued. The boutique flourished. Veronica officially came on as co-owner. She handled marketing, storytelling, and bridal content. I kept my hands in the fittings and ordering. We built something real. Something neither of us could have done alone. One day in early summer, we passed by a bride crying in the corner dressing room, not because the dress didn't fit, but because her father wouldn't be coming to the wedding. Veronica knelt beside her, whispered something only the two of them could hear, and after a few moments, the bride stood and said, Okay. Let's keep going. Later, I asked what she'd said. Veronica smiled faintly. I told her she didn't need someone else to show up to be complete. She just needed to stand there and believe she belonged. And somehow, that's exactly what we'd both done. stood up in the rubble of our past, planted something steady, and built a place where women didn't have to apologize for being undone, just willing to try again.